I mean, I've sat down with people that have very large HSA account balances, and that's available to them as a potentially a tax-free income stream or another income stream.
Are you ready for a successful retirement? We're addressing the topics facing today's retirees. Welcome to Retire with Ryan. Now here's your host, Ryan Morrissey.
Thank you for tuning in. This is episode 1 of our podcast. Many of you have attended adult education classes that I've taught, and unfortunately due to COVID, those are suspended for the time being. So I decided it would be a great idea to take a lot of that knowledge and put that into a podcast. So our first podcast is going to be focusing on health savings accounts. And obviously a lot of us have been, either intentionally or unintentionally been moving over into high deductible health insurance plans. And as a result of that, now you have the ability to contribute to what's known as an HSA or health savings account. So I want to cover many of the things you should know about those plans, and at the end of this, give you some action items to put into play to help improve that. So a health savings account is available to you if you're in a high deductible health plan. And if you are in a high deductible health plan, depending upon your marital status, there's a certain amount of money that you can contribute into that plan. So if you're a single individual for 2019, you could contribute $3,500 into the health savings account. If you're married, the limit is $7,000. Or if you're single and have children, you can also contribute up to the $7,000 you're considered to be in a family plan. Additionally, if you're over 55, there's a $1,000 catch-up that you can make, $1,000 additional contribution. So what most people do is everyone has to have an account in their name. And so if you're married, let's say, and both you and your spouse are over 55, in order to each make that $1,000 catch-up contribution, you'd each have to have your own account. Now, one spouse could have the account in just their name if they wanted to do that. If they contribute the $7,000, if they're over 55, put in the additional $1,000. However, if the other spouse is over 55, they would need their own account to do so. Now, that limit is a combination of between what you and your employer puts in. So some employers are putting in money into these accounts on your behalf. So if, let's say, your employer put in $1,000 and you've put in $2,500, well, now you've hit the limit. So you need to keep that employer contribution in mind when you're getting close to the limit. So the real benefit of these plans, though, is that they're considered what's known as a triple tax-free plan, meaning that you're receiving a deduction when the money goes into the plan. The money grows tax-deferred, and then if you take it out for health-related costs, it's also tax-free. No other retirement account offers that. If you think about a traditional 401k, you're getting a tax deduction when it goes in. The money grows tax-deferred, but when it comes out, you have to pay tax on it. The Roth IRA, you do get tax-deferred growth, and you also get the ability to take it out tax-free, but you don't get that deduction when it goes in. So that's why this account is so advantageous. You also have the ability to invest the money, and this is really dependent upon the HSA provider that you're using. Some HSA providers don't really allow you to invest the money at all. Your pretty much only investment option is money market. And with interest rates being as low as they are, you're probably earning very little on your money market. So if you can't invest the money, you do have the option to transfer the money to another provider. And you'd really want a provider that's going to give you good investment choices, and good being defined by a broad selection of low-cost investment options, preferably index funds, and also has minimum or no fees that they're going to charge you to maintain that account. Many of you have probably heard of Morningstar. They conduct research on mutual funds, investments. They actually put out a list every year of a review of the available HSA providers that one could individually select. And for this past year, they ranked Fidelity's HSA account as the number one choice. That is actually who I use for my own HSA account. And the reason they rank them number one is because of the fact that Fidelity doesn't charge anything to maintain the account there, and they have a very broad selection of low-cost funds that you can buy, and there's currently no trading costs for you to buy those funds. I definitely recommend that you do your own research on this, but Fidelity I think would be a good choice if that was an option for you. So if you do have money in an HSA account and you don't have investment choices, or the investment choices are poor because they're high cost funds, or you have the other issue is that sometimes you have to build up a certain balance before you're allowed to invest. You might have to build up $1,000 or maybe even more, maybe $5,000. Well, the good news is that you have the ability to open up an account somewhere else and transfer it into there. And a lot of people don't realize that. So HSA accounts generally are funded through payroll contributions. The money will come out of your paycheck. You set up a certain amount and it goes over into your HSA account. But throughout the year, you have the ability to transfer the money from your employer's HSA account into another one, let's say at Fidelity. And I would highly recommend this as your account balance builds up if you don't have good investment choices. Now, I have seen some HSA accounts through large employers where there's little or no cost. There's some good investment options. So if you're one of those individuals, then maybe you don't have to go through this process. But if you're someone who has a HSA balance that's really not earning any interest and the money is accumulating, then you want to strongly consider transferring it. The other thing is that you don't actually have to make the contributions through payroll deduction. You have the ability up until the tax filing deadline to make contributions to reach the maximum. So I mentioned earlier how the maximum for 2019 is $3,500 if you're single, $7,000 if you're married or have dependents. So let's just say that you haven't filed your taxes for 2019 because, as you know, the tax filing deadline has been extended. Normally it's April 15th, but now it's July 15th. And you still have the ability to max out your HSA account up to $3,500 or $7,000, or even make that additional $1,000 catch up if you haven't filed your taxes. If you have filed your taxes, if it was worth it to you, if there's going to be a tax savings, you can definitely think about amending your tax return to take advantage of this deduction, because it is a deduction provided you qualify. Now, I'm not going to get into the specifics of the numbers as far as what the IRS requires. As far as you have to have a deductible on your health insurance plan that's up to a certain limit, and therefore it qualifies you. If you're unsure if you can contribute, you could go right to the IRS website. You can check that out, or you could talk to your HR department. But once you do, you want to make sure that you're making this maximum contribution. Now, the IRS also says that once you turn 65 and you're enrolled in Medicare, you're no longer able to make an HSA contribution. So that is the one negative. Once you enroll in Medicare, then you're no longer eligible to make HSA contributions. So for a lot of people, that means age 65. But if you're working past 65 or your spouse is working past 65, then you can stay on their health plan and you could actually keep making your HSA contributions and make them past age 65. But even enrolling in Medicare Part A will disqualify you from making an HSA contribution. That's something that some people may do because Part A, if you remember, covers part of the cost of a hospital stay. So it could be advantageous to have that if you happen to have an injury or an illness, so that part of that hospital bill would be covered, but you're losing the ability to make your HSA contribution once you do that. The other thing as far as taking the money out, as I mentioned before, if you take the money out for health-related costs, then it is tax-free to you. The IRS also has a list of all the things you can take it out. Some of the things generally are obviously anything, doctor's bills, surgeries, prescription drugs, even certain like preventative things like Band-Aids, sunblock, things that you wouldn't think of are on the list. Additionally, health insurance premiums, you can take money out of your HSA account to pay for that. So when you do become eligible for Medicare, and if you're going to get a Medicare supplement plan, you could take money out of your HSA to cover that as well. And provided that you're doing that, that's all going to be tax-free to you also. The other thing is that once you hit 65, let's just say you need some of this money and you don't have health-related costs, you could actually take the money out once you're 65 and you only have to pay income tax on it. So you still would have received the tax deduction and it would have grown tax deferred, and it would be just like taking money out of your 401k if it was a pre-tax contribution. The money would be coming out taxable. Now, what you should be doing to really make the most of these accounts is you want to let the money defer. you put in the $3,500 to $7,000. You do that for a number of years. And as you're going along through your life, whatever health costs you have, anything out of pocket, you track those expenses either in Microsoft Excel, or if you're more of a Google person, you can use Google Docs or even pen and paper. And those expenses, as you keep track of them, as they build up, you now have the ability at any point to take that money out tax-free. So let's just say that over the last 3 years, you've been tracking your health-related costs, and they came up to $5,000, and you've got $10,000 in your health savings account. At any point, you can take that money out, and it's tax-free to you. Now, what a lot of people do with these accounts is they don't view them as a long-term investment strategy. And I think that's where people are going wrong. They're putting in the money and it's coming right out. Now, you're still getting the benefit of the deduction by doing that, and it's coming out tax-free. But where I think these accounts really are going to be valuable is if you can let the money grow and accumulate for a number of years. That's what I'm personally doing. So $3,500 isn't obviously a lot of money, even $7,000. That's probably not going to get most of us to our retirement goal, but it's going to go a long way towards doing that. And if you are maxing these plans out year after year and you're letting the money grow and accumulate, this money could build up to be something substantial. I mean, I've sat down with people that have very large HSA account balances because they've been religiously contributing to these accounts, or their employer and them have been contributing, and they haven't touched the money. And that's available to them as a potentially a tax-free income stream or another income stream. So you want to look at this definitely as a long-term investment play. And if you're looking at it as a long-term investment play, then you'd probably want to have most of the money in stock funds. You know, I'm using stock index funds. You could use something to simplify your life like a total stock market index fund, or you could use the S&P 500. And that's where you'd want the majority of the money. And you'd want to keep some of the money in cash or bonds to be available and on hand for you in the event that you do need the money and your costs, outpace or exceed what you could comfortably pay for. Luckily, I've been relatively healthy, so has my wife and my son. So we haven't had to really touch the HSA account. It's been able to grow, and hopefully that continues for a long time. But I'm tracking these expenses, and I know that if at any point I needed money out of this account, I could take out a certain amount tax-free, and that would be available to me. So that's how I would look at this. So as far as action steps that I would take, number one, I would find out to see if you're eligible for a health savings account. And if you are, I would strongly encourage you to start contributing. If you're eligible and you already have an account and it's not earning much interest, then I would look to either invest it where it is, or if that's not a feasible option or not a good option, then I would look to transfer it somewhere else where you can be making more on your money and it can be, growing for you over time. And then I'd also look to make sure that you're maxing this account out. And why would I suggest maxing out your HSA? Because it is a triple tax-free account, as I mentioned before, very powerful. So as far as the order of things, I would definitely look as my number one thing to contribute to would be if my employer matches a 401k plan, definitely make sure you contribute and you get the max match. So if you have to put in 4% or 6%, whatever it is, to get the most from your employer, make sure you do that. Then next, I would look to fully fund my HSA account. If you're single or married or over 55, put that money in. That's a deduction. It's going to grow tax deferred. And then if it still makes sense for you to take a deduction, go back to the 401k and look to max that out. So I hope this helps give you some information about HSA accounts that you might not have thought about. And if you need any help from us, you can always check us out at retirewithryan.com. We'll be bringing these podcasts to you hopefully on a consistent basis and, helping get you prepared for retirement.
You should consult a financial advisor familiar with your specific circumstances before you make any financial decisions. Nothing in this broadcast constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Any mention of rates of return are historical or hypothetical in nature and are not a guarantee of future returns. Ryan Morrissey, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Morrissey Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor.